So basically, the topic for today is there is a lumber shortage.
And for those that didn't know, lumber is a key component to building houses.
At least in this country.
At least in this country, yes. Not always the case.
Hello! Welcome to episode 93 of KT Confidential, the real estate podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Ariel Kormendy.
I'm Adrian Trott. What's up, partner?
Hey, how are you? We've got the snowball mics out today.
I feel like I need to hold mine up because you're at a table that elevates it more, whereas mine is way down here.
You can actually adjust your thing here, and it does extend a little bit. So anyway, we're going to play around with some different audio options now that we've come to the realization that we're not opening the studio still anytime soon.
I think we could. We could sit on that opposite ends of the table.
Yeah, I don't know. We haven't chatted about it though. So for now, this is good. As you pointed out, I relocated with the family on vacation up at the cottage. I've relocated to the dining room. So I'm cool. I'm good. I'm not worried about that. Today's episode 93. Holy smokes. We're creeping in on that 100. Got to do something special for 100.
It's around the corner. We got the big celebration.
Before we get into it, if you haven't already and you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe so you get notifications of all these future videos and tips that we're going to be pumping down.
Every single Monday, we're putting out great content, great real estate tips.
Every Monday. And if you're listening, you can listen to this podcast on anywhere where you would listen to a podcast. I like to listen to it either on SoundCloud or on Apple Podcasts. Makes it really easy for listening to in the car. And if you have any interest in real estate, the real estate market, becoming a real estate agent, if you are a real estate agent, any of the above, please give us a thumbs up, leave us a review, leave us a comment. It really helps getting the word out there. And
just to put things into perspective so people know where our advice is coming from, Ariel and I are the owners of the Kormendy Trott team, the very successful real estate team in Halton, based out of Halton and working in the surrounding areas also. And then we also have a property management company. So we know what we're talking about.
And we are a team of 8 with offices in Milton and in Oakville. And we've been doing this for about 10 years. And we have a long history in sales, but also in a passion for real estate. So this is how we break it all down for all of you, and it's all free. It's all a wealth of wisdom. And we're always happy to answer any questions that you have about real estate, about buying, about selling, about renting, about being a landlord, a tenant, about investing. So go ahead, like and subscribe. You won't miss anything that way, and comment if you want us to talk about something. We're always happy to do that, and that's what we do on these podcasts. And today's topic was actually a comment from a colleague that happened to post an article,
a memo. It was a memo that came across the desks of many of this particular company's customers, and this was what was it? I guess a lumber supply.
Yeah. So basically the topic for today is there is a lumber shortage. And we wanted to talk about how that is going to potentially affect the real estate market. And lumber is like, if you go into Home Hardware, Home Depot, any Lumberville, or wherever you get your wood, there's a huge shortage. The shelves are barren. There's not much on the shelves right now, and whatever you can get your hands on is bloody expensive.
And for those that didn't know, lumber is a key component to building houses.
At least in this country.
At least in this country, yes. Not always the case. But it was an interesting memo. I don't know. I don't know if you read the whole thing, but 2 key components. One is just a huge shortage, which obviously supply and demand, and as a result of the shortage, prices have skyrocketed, in many cases double what they normally are, for many reasons. One, manpower. A lot of these companies that are processing and manufacturing or preparing all the lumber are not working at full capacity. And then you have all the transport issues where you don't have transport companies working at full capacity. Although we're getting kind of back to normal now, so we may see that shift, but there's been a huge reduction in production and delivery in the last 4 or 5 months.
And I believe it's only a blip, right? Like this is going to come back to normal and things will be fine. But that blip, we're going to talk about what it's going to do, or at least our beliefs and my beliefs of what it's going to affect when it comes to real estate. So here's what I think, because you asked me this question a few days ago and I said, well, let's not chat about it. Let's chat about it on the podcast. And here is my crystal ball coming out. Here's my prognostication, if you will, for this whole lumber effect. You are glowing. The top of your head is just shining.
That's really tall.
There are new home builders that, let's face it, it's going to start with the new builds. It's going to start with builders.
Of course.
And they are currently committed to a lot of homes. A lot of people buy pre-construction homes. The builder and the purchaser go into a contract for the builder to build that home. There is a estimated, we'll call it, completion date for this home. And the reason I say estimated is they tell you, well, this is your closing date, but they have the ability to delay that closing date up to 3 times.
That's right.
Which can push back the closing without compensation. They can continue to delay it with compensation, but they can delay it 3 times without compensation. So here's what I think is going to happen. I think new home builders are going to have a tough time getting the lumber that they need in order to construct these homes. The new home builders are going to delay as much as possible the construction of these homes, which in turn is going to delay people listing their homes for sale, because a great bulk of new home buyers right now in the GTA, because of prices, have a home to sell. Certainly somebody that's buying a detached home right now, the chances are they've got a home to sell.
Yes.
Whether it's a condo, a semi, a townhome, whatever, a smaller detached home, and they're moving up to a bigger home, et cetera, et cetera. There's no real statistic on what percentage of new home buyers have an existing home to sell, but I'm going to suggest that it's somewhere in the 60 to 75% range, that only approximately a quarter of new home buyers don't currently have a home to sell.
Well, so the other component of that would be those buying for the purpose of investment, where they're not selling one anyways.
Correct.
But that would be condos predominantly, small townhouses predominantly.
Correct. And we're definitely seeing less speculation purchases because of the prices of new homes. There's a little bit less opportunity now to purchase something, sit on it till it closes, and then flip it for $1 or $2. It is happening still in the condo market, but not so much in the freehold developments. So I think new home builders are going to delay some of their construction. It's going to delay people listing their homes for sale, which means less homes on the resale market. I think the prices of new homes are actually going to go up. So any future build, the builder is going to want to protect themselves against inflation rates on those components of building the house. And it might not stop at lumber, right? We could see it in plumbing. We could see it in electrical. I mean, all of the components that build a home potentially had an effect during COVID with everything being shut down. So I think new home builders will say, hey, we got a forecast that our costs are going to go up. Meanwhile, the resale market is on fire and going up. So I think we're going to see new home builders jack up the prices, which between the price increases and potential delays in closing or longer closings, I think it'll even bring more attention to the resale market and more heat on the resale market. So the resale market is going to see even less supply and even more demand. And I think it's going to bring the prices up even further than what they're currently seeing.
Yeah, and not to say that new construction is not a good idea, because the house that I'm living in was a new construction home, and I enjoyed the process very much. But it's a very different time now. And over the last 3 years, going back to 2017 and what happened then to even now, it's been pretty consistent that the market is more volatile. And the nice thing with the resale market, if you're buying and selling resale at the same time in the same market, your risk is lower. And it just kind of makes more sense that might be a safer avenue for most people. I think, I don't know, maybe tell me what your biggest objection you find is, but I find most people that want new, it's because they, like, I had a conversation with a lady the other day, and she said, I wanted to buy new construction versus resale because she's picky. And, my opinion on that is, well, the nice thing with older homes that you can't get with new homes is the neighborhoods and the lot sizes. But the one thing you can do is make it whatever you want. So even if you're picky, you can still have the house you want.
You can change the changeable. You cannot change the unchangeable. And unchangeable.
I was just going to say, you said in the beginning that we have wisdom. I was going to say that this is a line out of the wisdom that you have for our viewers.
Yeah, I guess. You can't change location. You cannot change location, and you cannot speed up time. So if you like big trees on your road and in your backyard and in front of your house, if you like to live in an area where the lot sizes are a little bit bigger, because certainly as they continue to build new homes, the lot sizes are progressively getting smaller.
Quickly and significantly.
I find also a lot of people now, and we might even see that more after this whole COVID thing, but floor plans are changing, and they have changed, and it's an evolution process of new builders understanding what might be demanded. And for the last 10 plus years, new home builders decided that open concepts is what everybody wants. And I don't believe that's 100% the case anymore. 10 years ago, even 5, 6, 7 years ago, people said, yeah, I want open concept. I want the kitchen, living room, dining room to all be able to see each other and all this. But now I would say a huge portion of our audience and our huge portion of our client base are looking to have a little bit more degree of separation. They want that separate sitting area. So when you've got guests, you can sit in there and they don't see necessarily the kitchen, and they don't see all of the mess from everything that you're cooking. And they potentially want maybe a playroom on the main floor or
now main floor office,
things of that nature. And for the longest time, you didn't get that. And right now, if you look at most new build floor plans, you're getting open concept. You're not getting walls. So not all the time is a new home going to make a lot of sense from the perspective of you can change things like, you can even change the kitchen, right? Rip out the kitchen, put a new one in, put your dream kitchen in. It will probably cost you less to do that than upgrading with the builder. You can gut the washroom and put a new washroom in, or if the washroom is decent but it doesn't have granite countertops and you want granite countertops, that's easy to do. If you don't like the floors, rip out the floors, throw some new ones in. You can't change the footprint of the house, and you can't change the location. You can modify the house to look the way you want with a bit of money and a bit of time, but there's a lot of things to consider. Anyways, lumber is expensive now. It's hard to get. It's going to affect what happens with the builders. And I think it's going to, in turn, affect prices all around. And
inevitably,
in an upward fashion. This is not going to have a downward pressure on prices. It will have an upward pressure.
Yes. Well, builders will do one of two things: either slow down the production of their homes, delay releases of new developments, or increase prices to protect themselves because of the change in lumber prices. So inevitably, if prices in new construction change, it will affect resale, and same as if there's fewer homes available, obviously. And that's what the biggest factor of the market is supply and demand. And that goes back to 2017 when everyone was complaining about all these new rules that the government was implementing, trying to change things, when really it just comes down to supply and demand. So
if there's no supply and there is, the mortgage rates are low, very, very low mortgage rates right now. The GTA population is exploding and has exploded. Immigration will continue at high levels for the Greater Toronto area. And I greatly believe that we are going to see a lot of generational shifting of equity. And what do I mean by that? I mean, there's going to be a lot of parents that are gifting some money to their children and grandchildren in order to be able to get into the real estate market. And I think we're going to see a lot of that over the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, especially because the parents don't, a lot of parents will want their kids to be closer, and it's not, and a lot of those parents live in the GTA, and they don't want their kids moving to Cambridge, Kitchener-Waterloo, Woodstock, Stony Creek, whatever. They want them to be within a reasonable driving distance, especially if there's potential for grandkids. So, why wouldn't they give them some of that potential inheritance up early?
Well, and you figure they bought the house for $100,000, 30 years ago or whatever, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And now they're sitting on $1 million house with all this equity. And now they realize, well, we don't need this house. It's too big for us. We're retired now. We need to downsize. We don't want stairs. We don't want much maintenance. So they buy a $500,000 condo. They've already got their nest egg, and now they've got another $500,000. So instead of, waiting until they're dead to pass that money along, they're going to give it out to kids and to grandkids. And that's what's happening already. And it's going to happen more and more. And that's what's going to invigorate the lower price properties. And then the higher price properties are going to see a lot of just move up buyers. Again, you've built up the equity in your existing home. Your home and your family is growing. You need some more space. You want that main floor office that you can't get in X square footage. So you say, now we need X plus 1, and you're going to move up. So there's going to be lots of movement at all prices of the resale ladder. And, when there's not enough supply from the new home builders to support that, or the demand is just not the same for the new builds anymore. Like I was having this discussion with a client the other week who ultimately this past weekend ended up purchasing a resale home that was 2 years old. That was the happy balance for them. And this particular home has grass and a fence, and all the grading's been done. All of the warranty work has been completed.
Much of the inconveniences that come with new construction no longer exist.
Well, they asked me before we went out and we saw some properties, they asked me, should we consider a new build? And I went through it with them and I said, listen, you have 3 kids, young kids. Are you okay living in dirt roads?
Right.
Are you okay with there being no parks accessible? Like you have to literally drive 5-6 minutes to the closest neighborhood park? Are you okay that there aren't any amenities? Like the schools are still going to be built. So you have to temporarily put them in another school where there's potentially, portables that because they're just temporary, right? Because they're shifting kids around.
Well, that's a big one with new neighborhoods.
Maybe there's no busing for the school because that happens at a later stage.
Yeah.
Maybe, you got to think about all those things. You got to think, do I need grass in my backyard? Do I want to deal with all the dust? Do I want to deal with construction workers coming back to repair things all the time until all of my warranty work is completed? So, we went through it, and then we looked at the pricing. We looked at, okay, here's what the new builder is asking. Most of them are not negotiable. Here's what they're asking for the property. Now let's add in some upgrades, right? Because, hey, if we're buying the new home, we want to get what we want. We're going to spend a few $1,000s in the kitchen. We're going to spend a few $1,000s because we don't like the standard floors. We want to upgrade the countertops, this and that. You can easily, on $1 million home, spend 5%, $50,000. No question about it. So now you're at $1,050,000. Now you add in your fence, your air conditioning. You're not taking basic appliances if they come with them, which most will not now. So appliances, you're 10 to 15 grand, air conditioner and fence, you're another 5, 6, 7, $8,000. So you're talking $20,000 to $25,000 on top of that. So now here's $75,000 extra on top of the asking price. And then you
just
take
those upgrades and reinvest them into the resale house and then you got
to wait, right?
Yeah.
Like you're in the market because you want to move. Now you got to wait a year or two to make that happen. You don't know. Maybe you lose your job in between now and then. Maybe the market does slide. So now you're committed to purchasing this $1 million home, and you're planning on selling your $750,000 home, but you can only do that in 12 to 18 months, whenever, closer to the closing of the new home. And the market takes a pause and maybe a pullback, and instead of getting $750,000 for your home, you're now getting $700,000. It happened. It happened in 2017. A lot of people couldn't close on their property because they didn't have the equity anymore. Now, of course, it's a gamble, right? Because that $750,000 home could be $800,000 or $850,000 by the time you go and sell.
Well, we know we've worked with many clients who their new construction homes were delayed, and it worked in their favor, because I remember one specifically across the street from us that you'll recall. And I think they ended up selling for $100,000 more as a result of that delay. So they did very well. But it's not always that case, and it is a bit of a gamble.
Very seldom actually, because especially now with the turbulence in the market, you definitely want to be buying and selling in the same market to make sure that you know what your costs are. So anyways, just going back to lumber and
the shortage
industry
also affected even just small jobs and renos. And there was, I've heard of a couple deck building companies where all they do is decks and fences, and they've had to put jobs on hold because they can't get supplies either. So it's affecting more people. So it'll be interesting. I don't suspect it'll last long, though, really. I think now that, businesses getting back to more of a normal state for pretty well every industry, production will ramp up. People are going to be working overtime, trying to pump out some material to get things up and running.
Yeah, everybody's going to be trying to make up for lost ground.
Yes.
I feel bad for industries like food and beverage, because, their audience is still much less than what it would have been pre-COVID, because there's still a lot of people that won't go to the restaurants and aren't going to the bars and things like that, even though they've opened up with all the precautions in place. But it's not like you can just all of a sudden say, I'm going to make 1,000 hamburgers today and sell all 1,000 hamburgers. No, you sell 200 hamburgers to the 200 people that order a hamburger. You're not automatically just ramping up your business, right? So there's a lot of businesses like that that are going to feel an effect, and potentially a lot of people in those type of industries that are going to feel the effect on purchasing a home. Like if they were thinking about it, maybe now that decision is delayed, and there's going to be a bunch of people that unfortunately will have to sell their home because of affordability issues. So it's this whole weird thing that's going to happen over the next few months, and it's hard to get that crystal ball out and determine what exactly is going to transpire. But from a lumber standpoint, shortage of lumber is going to create a shortage of new homes being built. It's going to create a demand even more so than there already is for the resale homes. There's a lack of inventory definitely in the GTA, certainly in Halton and Peel region, where we do a bulk of our trading, and Wellington region, Hamilton region. And then with the further shortage in supply, I think we're going to see some tremendous pressure on buyers. There's going to be, like, we're seeing multiple offers.
There already is.
On pretty much everything. I mean, can you imagine?
Been in multiples consistently for a while.
So that's what it is, folks. That's what you got to look forward to if you're buying a house, is just be prepared. We've talked about this many, many times. Talk to the right realtor, get your ducks in order, get that pre-approval, get your home ready to go early if you're planning on buying.
Despite all of the professional projections from companies and organizations like CMHC and all these media companies saying the real estate market's going to burst, there are far too many reasons to believe and things going on that make us believe that it's quite to the contrary. I suspect it will continue as it is for quite a while.
Definitely no change in 2020. Yeah. I don't see it changing anytime early, like first quarter of 2021. It's still going to be the same issue. Low supply, high demand. That's been fact for a while.
Yeah.
And even though in 2017 at the peak, there was those changes in mortgage rules and new tests for how you qualify and all that stuff. It put a lot of fear, and the media put a lot of fear into people, and it ultimately did have an effect on the market, and the prices came down. But you're not even 3 years later, and the prices now, sounds like somebody's in trouble at your house.
Can you hear
that? The prices now in 2020 have surpassed the high peak prices of 2017.
Yes, which is interesting because we're not in most cases, it's not as competitive as it was back then either. So it's just a natural progression. I mean, there's still multiple offers, but you're not.
It's time.
Right.
It's like in the podcast, a couple of podcasts ago when we had Steve Cicchetto on, and him and I talked about investment properties and what he would invest in. And we talked about condos. And he said, because he's well invested in real estate, and obviously he's now a more seasoned realtor. He said the one mistake that he made was not doing it 10 years earlier.
Yeah, I heard that.
He started investing 10 years ago, and the mistake was not investing 10 years prior when he could have. And, you and I have talked about when we moved from Oakville to Milton about not being counseled and didn't have any advice and didn't even really think and try to keep that property when we made that switch, because we both used the equity from that property to purchase our existing homes, and it was a good move and a wise investment. Obviously, they are our family homes, but it was a good investment. However, had we kept those properties, that would have been a wise, very, very wise investment as well. So, as time goes on, property value goes up. Of course, if you're surrounded by acres and acres of farmland and your closest neighbor is hundreds and hundreds of meters away, and the school is 30 minutes away, and Walmart is an hour drive, and things like that. Yeah, the markets change, right? Like as you go into more rural areas. We talked about this when we talked about urban versus rural. But in the GTA specifically, and most of our audience live in the GTA, no shortage of buyers.
As long as people aren't going on vacation, they're going to continue to look for other avenues to escape. And as we've discussed in previous podcasts, that's often getting a bigger home that satisfies having more space for the family, or the pool in the backyard, or getting a second
pool
property.
Homes
like
are
a
off
cottage.
the chain. Pool homes are just seeing tons of attention now.
Well, in many industries, it's happening. Like my brother and sister-in-law usually go to Costa Rica for a couple months every year, but now they're not going to next year for 2021. So instead, they are out looking at some new toys and looking at getting some snowmobiles and reinvesting that money they would have otherwise spent on a vacation into something that they can use at home to enjoy their time here more. So
lots of changes happening, but that's the latest. And again, we'll see what happens, but we've been pretty accurate in predicting what's been going down since the beginning of the year up till now. You know, we're in almost the end of August, almost the end of summer, which is kind of crazy to believe, but we've predicted it this whole time, and this is going to be no exception here, folks. So if you're thinking of upgrading, you're thinking of making a move, do it sooner rather than later this year. If you want to get an investment property, the rental prices are starting to climb back up again because of shortage. So we've seen a little bit of a hiccup there over the last couple of months, but rentals are flying off the books pretty quickly as well. So good signs for the real estate market all around.
I had something interesting happen when I was out with buyers that I thought I would convey to sellers. An important little thing, and it's kind of off topic. I apologize, but I was out with some clients looking at houses, and there's one particular house that we had attempted to get into twice, and both attempts were not successful. We were not approved. They wouldn't let us get through the house for whatever reason, and they are homeowners, not tenants at that property. And the response from my clients who were quite interested in the home said, well, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. And they said, don't bother trying to schedule it again. So it's interesting for sellers out there, when all these little tips we give you.
Whoa.
What?
I had a similar comment to you about a week or two ago about a property that you and I wanted to see.
Yeah, I wasn't obviously I wasn't that interested in it, though.
What was your answer to me though when I said, I guess it wasn't meant to be because it had sold conditionally, went back on the market.
I don't agree with that comment. I think that's just a scapegoat. I think, it wasn't meant to be is, bullshit. It's just, you didn't make the effort to make it happen.
So, but what did you respond with?
Nothing. I said, I actually pushed them and got them in there.
No, to me.
To you was we just didn't make enough effort to get in there. I don't remember the exact words I said.
I'm going to find the text.
But I think when people say, it just wasn't meant to be. No, it wasn't just not meant to be. It's that you didn't take the initiative to make it be.
Here's the thing. And we're going to end it on this as I look for your text.
There's going to be a few in there to scroll through. But as with anything, but my point there is you're looking.
No. Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to end it. So you can't talk anymore. Okay.
You've done 99% of the talking.
I believe in the meant to be attitude. In the sense that you got to go with your gut feeling.
That's not meant to be.
Your gut tells you what's meant to be. Your gut. So when buying real estate, don't teeter-totter. Don't teeter-totter. Shit or get off the pot. Your gut is going to tell you and your gut will tell you if it's bad. And if it's bad, just move on.
Right.
If your gut is telling you it's good, it's good. If your gut doesn't understand what it's doing and your head doesn't understand what it's doing, then you might want to dig in a bit further and don't just say it wasn't meant to be or it's not meant to be, because there might be something there, right?
Well, yeah. And that's where a good salesperson comes in. And salespeople have a bad stigma around them. But I think good salespeople help those indecisive people make educated decisions and move forward with those decisions.
Well, now we're getting totally off topic, but I'll give you a quick example of that again with the same client, the property that I sold on the weekend. This particular property, again, 2 years old, nicely upgraded, fit a lot of the check marks.
Yes.
It did not have that separate room where they wanted a sitting area. So while we were in the home, I looked at it and I go, well, wait a minute. There is enough space here that you can easily put up a nice wall. And I talked to them about making a feature wall with maybe some inset areas where you can hang some art and do some lighting features and things like that. And they go, wow, we didn't even really think of that. But yeah, if we put a wall here, we have a good size room that can be that sitting area for our guests. And then we have this big room that we can use as the living room and that overlooks the kitchen. That would make a lot of sense. And they took the night to think about it and they called me back and they said, actually, you're right. This is a great home for us. So anyway, on that note, this was episode 93 of KT Confidential. Let us know what you think is what's happening right now in the lumber industry with the shortage of supply and the higher prices. Is this going to affect the real estate market? And if so, how? We'd love to hear what you think. Leave us a comment. And if you like what you heard today, leave us a review. Leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a 2-star review, whatever you like. We want your feedback.
Review, comment, follow, like, all the above.
Love you guys. See you, partner. We'll see you next week, folks.